Everyone, and welcome to another Association for Black Economic Power presentation. I'm Freddie Bell, and tonight I hope you find the information that we present stimulating because we'll be talking about the economics of crime. We have a distinguished panel, but before we get into the panel, I just want to mention a few housekeeping activities this evening. You'll be able to submit your questions via our chat. We'll also ask you to take a survey, and that link will also appear there. And if we don't get to all of your questions that you can also submit by chat, we'll also be getting that information back to you promptly from our esteemed team of ABEP. It's going to be a great evening. You know, and I know everyone knows that crime is everywhere in America and is rising daily. However, are all of our communities across the country, particularly here in Minnesota, feeling the divestment equally because of crime? It has been long believed that the impact of crime is a leading cause of divestment in minority and in low-income communities. Tonight, we'll discuss the economics of crime. Yes, there are economics associated with crime. And we'll talk about its impacts on the individual person, the impacts on the community, and impacts on business. Our experts are here tonight, and they share a unique perspective for you because they're leading members of our North Minneapolis community. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you our panel of distinguished guests. We'll start with Mr. Tito Wilson. He is the owner of Wilson's Image and Wilson's Image College Scholarships, and it's a composition of multiple businesses and initiatives, all designed to improve North Minneapolis and its community and enhance the lives of its residents. We welcome Mr. Tito Wilson. Also joining us tonight on our distinguished panel is Mr. KB Brown, who is the owner of Wolfpack Promotions. And joining us is Mr. Daniel Johnson. He is the CEO of Arise. He's their designee. Experienced financial professional he is, with a broad range of close relationships with business and community leaders throughout the Twin Cities. Mr. Wilson, Mr. Brown, Mr. Johnson, welcome to tonight as we discuss the economics of crime. Let's get started, and I'll direct our first question to Mr. Wilson, Tito Wilson. You know, we really cannot ignore the anniversary of Mr. George Floyd's murder, which put the spotlight on a number of economic challenges right here in Minneapolis. 3 years later, what changes do you see in our communities?
What changes do I see in our communities? Are we talking economically here, or just changes across the board?
Let's talk about in our community, and if you like, we can take it broader.
Well, so one thing that I have seen since the murder of George Floyd, it appears that there's some intentional efforts by various banks and other organizations to make sure that there is investments in North Minneapolis. For instance, US Bank, they have, and I don't have that number in front of me, but they've made a 10-year investment in North Minneapolis, well, a commitment for 10 years worth of investments in North Minneapolis. So that's something major, you know what I mean? It's something that I haven't seen before. And as a matter of fact, I actually had a panel discussion right here in the barbershop a little bit over a month ago with some executives from US Bank. And, so we kind of titled the discussion, Reimagining North Minneapolis, but from a youth perspective. So, we had a panel discussion, and it was, I led it, and I had eight youth. 6 of them were seniors, and 2 of them were juniors in high school. And so, it was an opportunity for the bank to hear from these youth, what does North Minneapolis need? You know what I mean? Like, what do you see here? What do you feel is holding North Minneapolis back? And what do you feel, we can do as a major bank organization in North Minneapolis to make it better? So I haven't seen things like that before. So I would say these are some of the, and it hasn't really moved the needle much, but at least is a start. You know what I mean? There's an interest in knowing what people want and what people need in North Minneapolis. So, like I said, just speaking just from them, I see that they've made a commitment to really be sincere about making some things change here in North Minneapolis.
All right, Tito. So the question to our panel tonight on this anniversary of George Floyd's murder, and has put a spotlight on a lot of challenges in Minneapolis. 3 years later, Mr. KB Brown, what changes have you seen, if any? Mr. Wilson outlined some economic changes.
I literally would second, pretty much what he said. I think it was $100 million that U.S. Bank has promised, which to me is significant, being that banks have traditionally stayed away from areas like North Minneapolis. So to me, that's probably one of the most significant changes, on top of some of the awareness of our interactions with law enforcement. To me, that's probably the start of it, is the shifting of the mindset of Black men in connection with law enforcement.
So the relationship with law enforcement. Daniel Johnson, what have you seen in these last 3 years?
Yes, thank you, Freddie. I would have to echo what the other gentlemen on the panel have said, as well as piggybacking on what the gentleman just said about the relationship with the police officers. Living right off of Broadway and Golden Valley Road, I've noticed that the very reason why Philando Castile got killed, it was because there was some minor traffic infraction, like a tail light out or something. They've stopped that. They've stopped pulling people over for fix-it things. And if they do, they give you a fix-it ticket. It's not as invasive. They're not using it as PC, probable cause, to then just go and make that swell into something that could turn tragic, as it did in years past. So along with the investment from U.S. Bank, as well as the interaction with the police, it has eased up a little bit. However, the flip side of that is to get a police officer to come in an event of need. That also has kind of slowed down a little bit. And if it's not a real emergency, you could wait for a lot longer before you got police response. And I think that's due to some of the gun-shy approach because of the situation at hand and what took place with George Floyd.
So can I add to that? Can I add to what he's saying? I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't go out of line here, but as a matter of fact, can I add to that, Freddie?
Please.
Okay. So I would say, along with that, I don't know if it's necessarily because of what happened to George Floyd that they're slow to respond. I think a large part of why they're slow to respond is because they don't have the numbers. You know what I mean? Like, there's just not enough police that patrol North Minneapolis now. And a lot of that could be because of George Floyd, because there was a large, exodus of police after the George Floyd situation. So, I wonder if the numbers were what they were before, would we still see some of the same, probable cause, just kind of minor infraction stops as we were seeing before?
So, Mr. Brown, can you amplify on that? So we've talked about these changes that we've seen, and Tito just mentioned it just a bit, and I'll take it from a different perspective. So what was the relationship like prior to George Floyd? We talked about numbers of investment. Number of officers. Are we saying that there was no investment in the North Minneapolis community?
I don't think so. I think it was looked at more as a negative area to even be. Unfortunately, it seems as if when you say North Minneapolis, the first thing people do is cringe, as if it's a bunch of heathens and animals. And while there is crime there, like you said at the beginning, there's crime everywhere. And unfortunately, when people highlight the crime in one area, it makes that area look worse than it actually is. To my understanding, and in my years, North Minneapolis is probably one of these most tight knit communities, even though we fight, but we're still tight knit. And, I think for too long, North Minneapolis has only had North Minneapolis because of the divestment.
So if we agree that crime does exist everywhere, as you just mentioned, Daniel, what would you say has been the major difference in the approach to investment in North Minneapolis versus other parts of the city, where the light rail, for example, is moving, but they're woefully underfunded because of delays? But what have you seen? What's the big difference?
Well, the big difference is unfortunately that it's North Minneapolis and the population. And I truly believe the makeup of the people in the population of North Minneapolis is why it gets the worst connotation when something bad happens. If you look at all the things that's happened out at the Mall of America, I'm talking about from kids being thrown over the rails to out and out gunfights and everything, they look at that as these are small instances that happen to a days full of crime-free activity in a wonderful destination for people all over the world. They explain it away a little bit more for something that's almost close to West Bloomington, as opposed to North Minneapolis in the shadow of our, of downtown Minneapolis, where the occupants of North Minneapolis just tend to be it's more Afro-Americans. Let's just call it what it is. And for that reason, it gets vilified more, and then it scares investors. They're afraid that, this doesn't make good business sense. You got bigs like Target that moved out, Walgreens that move out, and then it's a domino effect after that. So I truly believe the difference is the people that make up the community. And that is what the fear comes in, not just the emotional fear and the financial fear.
It's interesting you're talking about financial fear, and I'll talk to Tito Wilson right now. We just heard that $100 million from U.S. Bank has been invested into North Minneapolis. But does that mean that systemic racism is going away as it looks in housing, jobs, and health? What's been the impact? What's been the economic challenge?
So no, it doesn't mean that those things are going away. And as proud as I am, of U.S. Bank for taking the lead on making that sort of investment, it's not just, it shouldn't just only be them. You know what I mean? There's so many organizations, companies, large, medium-sized, whatever, that should be making investments in North Minneapolis. So it doesn't change the systematic racism at all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It just gives us that are here an opportunity to kind of, to a degree, level some of the playing fields, but it certainly does not, money is not gonna take away, large investors is not gonna take away systematic racism. A shift in the mind, you know what I mean? And realizing that we're all human and we all deserve the same life as anyone, that's what changes racism. So we got a long way to go before that. And, so this whole thing, we started the conversation talking about, crime leading to disinvestment. I would say it's the other way around. I would say the disinvestment in our community, disinvestment started first. You know what I mean? And so I think that leads to crime because, when you have boarded up, buildings, you have buildings that's owned by the city and the county or whatever, been sitting, for years and years and years unused, it dampens the hope. It dampens the hope of the people, and it causes despair. And crime, and most times is violence, shooting, robbing, stabbing, all these things, these are pretty much crimes of proximity. So we end up hurting the people that live right around us. You know what I mean? So I think the disinvestment came first, which led to the crime, which led to further disinvestment. So absolutely, like I said, I'm proud of U.S. Bank for making that $100 million initiative. Depending on the results of it, they could do more, and that could attract other banks or other organizations to do some investments in North Minneapolis. But I want them to be careful about how they make these investments too. We don't want to just be throwing money at people or just at plans. We want to make sure that these investments are going to change the situation. It's not going to change it overnight, and it's not going to change the whole neighborhood. But slowly but surely, you make investments in the right people with the right ideas, and I think we'll start to see some changes. But absolutely, it's not going to change systematic racism at all.
Tito, you mentioned people, and as I go to Mr. Brown right now, I'll just slightly reframe that question to see if we can dig just a little deeper. So the question to you would be, talk about the role that systemic racism has in crime with housing, jobs, health, and what role do we have as citizens to partner with these businesses and to partner with other families in stemming this tide and really turning the corner on economic racism?
Well, I think we need to first remember that Minneapolis was kind of the jumpstart of racial covenants when it came to housing. North Minneapolis is predominantly renters. Like the gentleman said earlier, it's predominantly Black. Disinvestment, like Tito said, it is disinvestment is what leads to crime. The divestment in our community and the systematic divestment is treacherous. It's hard to explain. You can't get business loans. You can't get, the money that flows in other parts of the city and other parts of the state, they do not flow there. All the money in North Minneapolis flows through certain hands that filter it. It never reaches the people that are suffering. And those are the people that we look at as criminals. And a lot of it is, like you said, proximity. They have nothing else to do. Like they're trying to survive. And I think that is the byproduct of, the racial covenants and the entire mindset of systematic racism.
We're talking about the role that systemic racism has in housing, jobs, health. We've seen a lot of emphasis on health in just the last 3 years with something called the pandemic. I believe that's what they called it. But as a business leader, what do you think, what does reinvestment in our community really look like to you? Daniel Brown, I'll ask you that question. What does reinvestment in the community look like? We've got the major corporations investing, but what does it take from our community, and how can those two work hand in hand?
Well, that's a great question. And what it looks like is it sounds simple. And one part of it is, if you can buy it in North Minneapolis, buy it there. If you can get the things that you need so that north side dollar stays over north, do that. There was a statistic that says north side dollars stay over north for about 20 minutes, half an hour. Then we're out to St. Louis Park, Golden Valley, further downtown, or out to the mall, and all these places. It starts real simple. Whatever you can do, and it's a mindset, because back in the civil rights days, people boycotted the bus and they walked. They brought the busing industry to their knees because their dollars mattered. And we've all become kind of microwave type of people where we want it right now. We want it fast. We want 30 seconds and something to be hot. It's going to take that old spirit of just getting right down to the basics. I can find it over north, either my hardware store on Broadway, or then I have to jump over to my 3 choices of grocery stores between Hy-Vee and Cub. All right, now I need to get my hair done. Now I need beauty supplies. Now, if I do want to not cook tonight and do fast food, where can I get it here? Where can I get my health taken care of, the new Pilot City situation? On to health and services and aids like that. That's what it looks like. And also, it's reinvesting in your family and your kids, and letting them know the rich heritage of North Minneapolis, learning more about the history of where you're at, and also keeping your dollars local is the best start to reinvesting. As individuals can do. Of course, businesses like US Bank, they're doing their part. They're, well, a nice part, dropping the 100 million. But like the other gentleman said, let's not willy-nilly throw that money around. Let's be strategic in that and look for what's called viable results, good results from these things, and then continue to encourage that. So in short, it's pretty basic. Keep the dollars over here. Try to get your things from over north to start. And then from there, it goes on to block parties and getting back the old Phyllis Wheatley festivals and things like that, to where people know that this is a good place to be. It really is a good place to be. And I do want to say one other thing.
Sure.
I've lived over north for over 40 years collectively. And I see that it's changing. There was a mass exodus of Black people to Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center that I think we all are aware of. And what's happening is, before people or powers that be really come in and swap up a lot of land for nothing, it gets depressed because they let it starve and then come and pick it up for nothing, all the property, all the land, and then it gets regentrified. So we have to be careful about that. Hold on to your property.
All right.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Tito Wilson, you are right there on Broadway with Wilson's Image. You see a lot of business. You see a lot from your vantage point with those huge windows of your enterprise. So as a business leader, do you think keeping the money in North more than 11 minutes, as was just mentioned, is that a key to rebuilding the investment in our communities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the only way that we're going to thrive. When you think about, money just literally being made and then just spent right out, it's because we don't have everything that we need here. You know what I mean? Once, just like Mr. Daniel Johnson said, once we have everything that we need, we can create our own self-contained business ecosystem right here in North Minneapolis. You know what I mean? But that's definitely going to take some major investments. It's going to take, maybe people just biting, no pun intended, but biting a bullet and saying, you know what? As much as we want to get away from the crime, we need to stay here. You know what I mean? Is North Minneapolis worth it? You know what I mean? And I would beg to say, yeah, yes, it is. I live here. I run my business here, right here in North Minneapolis. I'm not leaving, as much as, and I got a bullet in the hood of my truck, you know what I mean, about a week and a half ago. And I'm gonna tell you, it was hard. Me and my wife, we contemplated moving out of here, but I said, no, you know what? We have to stay here, because if everybody leaves, then it's just gonna lead to even more further and further disinvestment. Disinvestment can come from us too, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Got to be careful how we think about it. So certainly when we continue to invest in our people, continue to invest in our businesses, continue to invest in our communities, generate new businesses, create and have the things here that people need, so they won't have to travel outside. They won't even have to go to Robbinsdale. If we, like I said, create our own business ecosystem right here in North Minneapolis. It can be done. We just have to stay here and just keep grinding and, dealing with, the crime that happens here, crime that happens there. We just got to keep on keeping on. It's tough. And, for people that say, you know what, I can't do this anymore, and they leave,
Mhm.
I can't, whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever. But I'm one of those persons, you know what I mean? I just duck a little bit and keep on coming, you know what I mean? Keep on coming.
Tito, you keep it real. And
Right.
KB, you've heard from Daniel, you just heard from Tito Wilson. Do you ascribe to this idea?
Oh yeah. I mean, me and Tito are on the same block, so uh, I think we've we disagree on some things, but for the most part, I think we have the same focus. The only thing I would add is that, I think one of the things, like you said, it starts with us. One of the things that I think we need to do is stop looking at each other as competition, and look at each other as, business associates. That's how you build that business node. There was actually a study that was done a few years ago that actually it took the categories of things that we needed, and we were undervalued on everything except for healthcare. So we pretty much need everything in North Minneapolis because everything is left. So, in order to bring that back, like Tito said, it takes people like us to hunker down, and hunker down, Tito, message received, message received,
KB is
and
talking about,
it takes,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
it takes people being honest.
All right. So you brought up the idea of resources, KB, and I'm just curious. So what kind of resources are needed? Daniel, what kind of resources are needed? What initiatives need to be taken? What initiatives or investments are needed in these areas to effectively push crime out and change the economic picture of crime in our community?
Well, I believe it's, of course, infusions of cash and resources in that regard always helps with options for what people can do. We need more education. We need financial savvy classes to be taught, because if people were busy about their business and learning how to save, knowing that they have these 3-step programs to make sure that they get on a track to start saving money for that first last month in their deposit, or for that first down payment for buying a home over north. If they were involved and engaged in things like that, they wouldn't just be sitting around, maybe sometimes loitering, maybe being in places where they could be questioned and pull up on probable cause by their being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The other thing is what was spent. Keith Ellison, I have to tip my hat to him. What he did with Merwin's Drugs and that gas station over off of Lindale has been a game changer. It has knocked out a lot of that open air drugs, a lot of different crimes that were happening right there. I drove by there today at high noon, and it was respectable. That gas station was empty, and there were very few people just standing around. Everyone was coming to their cars and leaving. It takes the capital of our bigger politicians, the people that have the power, that can bring in the right focus to some business owners to say, hey, listen, we are not going to tolerate this. You're not letting people congregate like this. It has to be dealt with, and there has to be an understanding that we are going to protect people coming in and out of these stores so that we can have the business. I wouldn't go to that liquor store because there's too many people in the doorway. Too many people waiting for me when I leave, too many people waiting for me when I get there. It's a gas station. I'll never use it. There's too many folks just doing things other than getting gas, okay? So that's going to help a lot by cleaning up, and it already has started, Freddie, Mr. Bell. So I'm excited. Those are the things. We need our political capital to come and put their influence in, as well as our community to have a better savvy education in finances so they can be more about their business instead of sauntering around.
Peter, we come back to you. You just mentioned something recent. You found a bullet hole in your vehicle right outside the shop there. So talk about the resources. What does Tito need granularly? What does the community need? What resources, what initiatives, what investments are needed in order to push the crime out? We saw, as we just heard from Daniel, that Merwin's Liquors, Winners gas station has been cleaned up. What do you see that we need?
Please, I hope y'all don't beat me up for saying this, but we need more police too. You know what I mean? Better policing. You know what I mean? Better policing. I know this is the anniversary of George Floyd, who got killed by a Minneapolis police. Well, few Minneapolis police, but we certainly can't understate the fact that we need police, but better policing that respects our humanity and understands who we are as human beings and wants to work with us. So we certainly need that. But people need access to all sorts of resources. You know what I mean? So if y'all don't mind, I'm gonna toot my horn just a little bit here. If y'all just give me a second. So Freddie, you know, and KB, you know, so last year, um, I started working with a few healthcare organizations. Um, a few large like North Memorial right here in Robbinsdale, Children's Hospital in I think that's South Minneapolis. We even pulled in Gillette Children's Hospital from St. Paul. Life Source is down by West River Road. We pulled them in, and we also pulled in Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity and a lot of organizations. And we created a health event. It's just one day, like 6-7 hours. So during COVID, a lot of things about Black people being under resourced and or barriers to all sorts of things it was already exposed. A lot of stuff we already knew, but the rest of the world finally took their blinders. They were forced to take their blinders off, and they got this realization as well. So, you had all of these different organizations, everybody and their mama was saying we need to be more friendly to the Black community. You know what I mean? So we heard that loud and clear. And we said, okay, we're going to take you to task. And so, like I said, I named off these organizations. There's a lot of other organizations also. And what we said, you know what? So since you want to be more friendly to the Black community, you have these resources and you need to connect to the people in the community. And it's hard to round up a bunch of Black folks, particularly Black men. I'll be the first one to raise my hand to get up and go to doctors, go to clinics, whatever, to get our health checks. You know what I mean, to make sure that we're properly educated around the preventative healthcare methods and things of that nature. Even housing. A lot of people don't understand that. If you have situations at home, you know what I mean. If your housing situation is not secure, that can lead to poor health outcomes. It can lead to, poor grades for kids in schools, you know what I mean? And a host of other things. So, like I said, we pulled in all these organizations and we made them come into the community. You know what I mean? A lot of them were scared, you know what I mean? But we said, you know what? We said you owe the Black community, you know what I mean? From all these years of disinvestment. So come into the community and serve the community. Give this community 7 hours of your time and give them all the resources, the education that you possibly can, everything that they need. Bring it here. And they did that. You know what I mean? They did it. It was very successful. And we're actually working on year 2. The event is called Live Your Healthy Life. It's happening Saturday, August 12th. I know it's a shameless plug, but I'm trying to answer your question with put some meat on the bones here. You know what I mean? So this is what I felt like, I could do to make sure that the resources were brought right into the community, a day of service for Black people right here in North Minneapolis. So we need more stuff like that as well.
I get it. And I appreciate the shameless plug, nor do we do shout outs either. But, be that as it may, we talked about from the leadership perspective, the business owner's perspective, KB. So what can we do as individuals? How can the community get involved in its own development that can help reduce crime and the effects of it? Let's start with you on that question, KB.
I think Tito kind of hinted to it earlier. I think as a community, North Minneapolis is almost 46% 25 and under. And I think it's important that we stop siloing ourselves and not paying attention to the kids as if they're not there. Because they're the ones that are going to, whatever we build, they're the ones that it's their responsibility to build it further. And as business owners, it's important that people see, I was thinking, Tito, toot your horn, please. That's part of the problem is we don't toot the good stuff that happens in our community like that. So toot away, please, because the kids, they see that and it gives them the aspirations to be better. And that's the responsibility of us as business owners is to show the youth in our community that there is a different way than what they've seen on TV, And that's, to me, that's probably the main thing that we need to be doing as business owners.
So Daniel, what can mom and dad do? What can uncle and aunt do themselves to have a positive impact on crime?
If you see something, say something. It's getting down. I mean, keep a light on the front porch. Get your block clubs back together. Become aware of who all supposed to be on your block. I mean, that really does help. And I mean, nothing that's bad likes the light turned on. If you notice any situation, you turn the light on, things scatter. You put the light on it and focus on it. I have a neighbor who will, if you're sitting around and just have your engine idling, he'll just come and, can we help you? Is there someone that you're visiting here? You know, your music is loud and you're idling and we have children. Is letting people know, and most of the times they ease off right away. No problem, no anger, nothing. It's just that we have become afraid of our own neighbors and the people in our community. And that's one of the biggest things that I think we should really girder up the strength and the courage to not be afraid of our community members if we're coming with a just cause and a just request. You know, please don't speed through the neighborhood. We have kids.
Right.
Don't sit with your car idling and your music booming. It's after dusk. Please pick up after yourself. Make sure your trash bins are all cleaned up, because one thing I know about Northsiders from running the Olson Highway branch and dealing with them from a financial perspective all the way to flipping hamburgers. North Minneapolis will match your energy. If you bring them great energy, they're going to have to see it a couple of times, then they're going to match it. But if you bring them just a negative energy, raggedy, ran down things, they're going to act that way. So what we can do is bring a better energy and look for that match from the people in our community.
Makes a lot of sense. And I'll just pause right here and tell everyone who's with us tonight that soon you'll see a link in the chat box, and we hope that you'll take time to complete the survey. And we want to know what's going on with you, what your thoughts are as well. There's a question that has come to us this evening, and the statement says this: I think mental health is a deep issue with respect to crime and other dysfunctional behavior. So the question is this, and we'll ask Tito first: are resources needed to deal with the historic and what she calls trauma, current trauma that young people grow up with in our communities?
So, you know, the easiest way for me to answer that is to say absolutely yes. You know, I'm not a doctor, not a mental health expert, but, you know, without a doubt, you know, people need access to mental health resources. The whole, you know, mental health being stigmatized, you know, it seemed like it's kind of dissipating. It seemed like people are not as, you know, concerned with, you know, like, you know, confessing that they have challenges, you know what I mean? But absolutely, people 100% need it. And I'm, you know, I missed that in my shameless plug, because we have mental health resources at our event as well. You know, I'm not trying to be funny, I'm being sincere. You know, it really is needed. It cannot be understated how serious the mental health piece is, you know, because if a lot of people, parents and stuff that deal with mental health or have mental health issues, a lot of time, you know, you're giving that to your kid. You know what I mean? If you have not addressed your own issues, you know, it's easy to spread that to the kids. And we have generations of people that are dealing with mental health issues. So 100%, I'm not an expert on that subject at all, but to answer that young lady's question, 100%. If you know someone that's suffering, do the best that you can to connect them with those resources, because it is needed. It is certainly needed. We see crime a lot of times displayed out all through our neighborhoods, and a lot of it is people just not having their you know, mental in good health.
Same question to you, KB. Are resources needed to deal with the historic and current trauma that young people are growing up with in our community?
Like Tito said, the short answer is absolutely yes. I commonly make a joking statement, but it's a real statement that the only thing that we in the past, the only thing that we pass on is debt and trauma in our community, which we need to break that cycle. Part of that trauma is, of course, prison is an issue. Most of the Black men that come out of prison come out with PTSD. The problem is they don't deal with it. Not just to be 100% honest. I got to a point where I had to deal with um, identifying it and actually addressing it, and that was the hardest thing that I could have done. So on top of the resources, we have to make sure that people know that it's okay to say, yes, I might need some medication to help me with this. Or yes, I need to talk to somebody. So it's not just about the resources. A lot of times it's just about people, having someone to talk to. One of the kids that I work with literally asked me one day, why do you care about me more than my own father?
Mm.
So I mean, mental health, yes, but in order to get that help, they have to be okay with someone telling them you need to see someone. Yeah. And then encouraging that and being there, being real and being there. Like it's not just about the resources. It's emotional. Like people need to feel okay with the people that they're talking to. Yep. And Tito's in that perfect spot because that's been the job of the barbers for decades. They were the doctors and the and the mental health professionals, and that's where people went to get things. And like we need to. I wear a shirt sometimes that says I take medication for real. Just to see how many people will ask me about it. Like we need to be serious about not just our physical health, but our mental health too, because they all play together.
So Daniel, I'm just curious, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. We got 6 days left. What can we do, Daniel, in 6 days to start the turn to tide with our awareness with mental health as it relates to stemming the issues of crime in our community?
I think we need to shake the stigmatism that goes along with being checked out in that manner. That's something that our community, Afro Americans, it wasn't that we didn't want to, it's just that we saw no example of that. I never saw my mother go to a psychiatrist or get any mental health treatment, or my cousins or people like that. It was all, we didn't have people that got diagnosed with, oh, he has Tourette syndrome, or he has ADD, or all of these things. To be totally honest, it was spanked out of me a little bit, some of the things. And as an adult, I went and got looked at and talked to someone and found out that there were some things that I needed to talk out. I found out just by taking this one little test, I was allergic to things that I've been eating all my life. Again, this is a classic case of not having access to health care or having access to good health professionals to where these questions could be posed and answered. So in this short period of time that we have left, I think families need to have conversations, real need and needs, and say, son, daughter, husband, whomever they may be, how do you feel? This is Mental Health Month. Is there something you want to talk about? Is there something that's been ailing you and that's been hindering you from moving forward and living your full life? And it has nothing to do with your backaches or your elbows or things like that. If it's something mental, let's see if we can do something about it this year, instead of letting another calendar year go by and all of the repercussions of you not doing something fall into play, which leads to what Tito says. You don't have good housing, you can have a bad mental setup. Then that leads to you being unhealthy. Then if you don't have a good job, on top of it all, you're living peck to tech or you're broke. That's a recipe for bad decisions. That's a recipe to put you on your day-to-day journey to make the wrong call. So in this last 6 days, families should have conversations about stuff that's outside of their normal box. And that's mental health and how someone's really feeling outside of the physical, the mental.
Lord, Freddie, if you don't mind, I like to jump in on this one. This is extremely close to my heart.
Sure.
My name is Deborah Hurst. I'm the executive director of ABEP, and I want to thank you all for your input. I am so enjoying this discussion. And as we were talking about the mental health piece, I thought about the microaggressions that Blacks face every day and that you're bombarded with, particularly Black men. And those microaggressions, when you don't deal with them or you don't have your armor up to shield you from them, they have a way of continually eating at the core of you, and it makes you feel helpless. It makes you feel as if you have no power. And so as we address mental health, I think we need to arm our people with the resources, and that arming can be just telling them that they're okay, that the way other people define you isn't you. We need to empower them to shield themselves from all that negativity that's coming at them. And I do want to segue back to, I love the fact that that it was stated earlier that the divestment is what leads to the economic challenges. And I absolutely salute US Bank bringing in resources in the community. If they're not asking the community what the community wants and needs, that's a misstep. And they need to hire people from the community first, find out what the community needs, give it to them, and then hire people in the community to provide those needs. That's where we need to start. And I also would be remiss if I didn't say that the community asked for a credit union. They asked for a Black-led community credit union, and ABEP is delivering that to them on a platter. And the gentleman, Dan Johnson, who sits here now, is the CEO designee of that credit union. And so that ecosystem of providing resources to the community, the credit union is going to be a critical part of that. And with that, I'm going to go back and mute myself. Thank you.
But before you go away, we want you a part of this discussion. You're bringing a different energy to all the fellas. No disrespect, gentlemen, but you bring a different energy.
She dropped some bombs right there and just tried to disappear on us.
I did get a personal chat. Somebody said, "Don't use my name." They said more conversations like this is what we need in our community. So let's go back to where we just started at the outset, almost 45 minutes ago. Where do you think the effort should be focused to drive crime out of our communities and out of the businesses to help our communities move forward? Someone mentioned that we saw what happened with Merwin Liquors. We saw what happened with Winners. We heard Tito say that we need to stay and reinvest in our communities. Deborah, that question goes to you first and then to our panelists.
Absolutely think we need to stay and reinvest in the community. I also think Dan made a good point when he said we have to be fearless. You have to stand up to it. You have to make that phone call. And I also agree with you, Tito. I believe that the police are there to serve. They should be serving. I want to be able to comfortably park my car, comfortably walk down the street, comfortably take care of my business. And you need security in order to do that. So part of investing in the community is each individual person in the community has a responsibility to make sure that we all are comfortable, that we all are prosperous, that we all are benefiting from the community. So you can't wait on somebody else to do it. You are somebody else. And so, yes, I believe that it's incumbent on us all to take care of what's happening in North Minneapolis, to address it. And we can't let the fear factor stop us. It's like you're buying into what other people have defined you as. If the outside community is saying North Minneapolis is a scary place to be, and you're acting like North Minneapolis is a scary place to be, then you're buying it and you're selling tickets to it.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So the same question to our panelists. Tito, first, we're about out of time. I'm going to put a stopwatch on you. 1 minute. tell us where the effort should be focused to drive crime out of our communities.
Investment, investment is a lot of financial investment, investment in the resources that the people are telling politicians and big major organizations that we need investments. You know what I mean? And it's I'm one of those persons that and again, hope y'all don't try to hit me here, but I'm not opposed to it. Hear me when I say this, please. I'm not one of these persons that will say gentrification is a problem. Hold on now. Hold on. I'm okay with gentrification long as we are the ones that's leading it. We need to gentrify our neighborhoods. We need to gentrify our communities. We need to be at the seat, the seat at the table of gentrification. Our communities have to change. There's no high five and having, no investment and having our communities look the same way they did 15, 20 years ago. We need to gentrify. We need to change our communities. We need to make sure that, hey, just like Ms. Daniel Johnson said, the young brother, the sister, whatever that's out doing something they should not be doing, try to correct them. If we cannot correct them and they're hell-bent on committing crime, then they need to get out of our community. You know what I mean? They do not need to be one stopping the progress. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but we cannot allow we love our people, absolutely. But my mama used to tell us, I cannot uphold you in the wrong. If you're doing wrong and you cannot change, you refuse to change, you got to go. So investment. Look at one more thing before I go. One more thing. You look at it, and I'm not saying that we're trying to be like North Loop, but you go down North Loop or Washington into North Loop, and you talk about billions of dollars of investment over the last 10, 15 years, billions of dollars. They're about a mile away. You come right down here in North Minneapolis and you see billions of dollars of disinvestment. That is an absolute shame. They got everything that they need over there, everything they want. It's not just restaurants and bars and stuff like that. You got office spaces. You got people that are building, big, huge businesses, companies over there. They got that is a self-contained ecosystem. Okay. We need to have our own right here on West Broadway and other parts of North Minneapolis. So investment. We are sitting at the tables of gentrifying our own communities.
Tito's talking about vision, and we'll swing that question to you, KB. Talk about the vision of our North Minneapolis community. We only have a few minutes left before we get to our Black History Fact.
The vision is simple. Like Tito said, don't beat you up. I think that's important that people understand that it is that's part of the vision is for him to disagree with me or me to disagree with him and have a conversation. What he said makes perfect sense. Like the vision needs to be investment in all manners of investment. It's not that we're anti-cop, we just are anti-bad cop. So we need to invest in having good cops that actually care about us and see us as people and keep our community safe. That it's all part of that same investment. Our block has the highest concentration of Black-owned businesses on West Broadway. And I know on my corner, if you're sitting in that parking lot too long, we're gonna ask you what you're doing out there.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
And if I feel like he needs help up there, I'm gonna walk up there and say, "You all right up there, brother?"
That's right.
And that's what we need to do, and that's the vision that we need to have. That is my brother, and I am my brother's keeper.
And the final answer comes from Daniel Johnson, the CEO designee of ARISE, or the Black Credit Union. What's the vision, sir?
I echo just what my co-panelists have just said. The vision is a bustling, lively, affluent Broadway. And Tito just mentioned less than a mile away, we have an example of it. And what it is an investment, and events. Let's kick up and get a couple more things to where we can catch and start dealing with kids at a younger age about financial savviness. That's why I'm glad once we do get a financial institution on Broadway, we will be offering that as a part of us doing business, not as a fee, but as what we have to do as a credit union. So it's investment events like street parties, night out, national night outs, getting to know your neighbors. But it's primarily back, it's a simple answer: investment. We need investment. We need a bustling Broadway on both sides of Broadway, just like on both sides of Washington.
All right. We're just about out of time, and I want to thank all of our panelists and everyone who's attending here tonight. Make sure you complete the survey. And we're going to bring back Deborah Hurston to talk to us. And I'm looking at the clock, Deborah. Do we want to go ahead with the Black History moment right now, or do you have some words before we get there?
I say we go with the Black History moment.
Okay.
I'm looking at Dina trying to get a clue here. Yes, we go with the Black History.
All right. We rolled it out last month, and the initiative is a wonderful way for us to share the stories of our unsung heroes. And these moments, I found them to be impactful, and I hope that you do too. They're important for us to not only remember, but to help us to embrace and never forget the contributions from our communities.
The Association for Black Economic Power is pleased to bring you this Black History Matters moment. Knowing our past can be a vital link to the success of generations to come.
Granville Woods was born on April 23, 1856, in Columbus, Ohio. As a respected inventor, he was often called the Black Thomas Edison. Let's dig into why some say this name is unfit. At the age of 10, Granville began working in a machine shop, repairing railroad equipment and machinery. Intrigued by electricity that powered the machinery, Woods studied other machine workers as they attended to different pieces of equipment, and even paid workers to sit down and explain electrical concepts to him. Woods eventually moved around the country working on railroads and in steel mills. This experience helped to prepare him for a formal education studying engineering. Unfortunately, despite his high aptitude and valuable education and expertise, Woods was denied opportunities and promotions because of the color of his skin. Frustrated, Woods formed the Woods Railway Telegraph Company in 1884. The company manufactured and sold telephone, telegraph, and electrical equipment. In 1887, Woods developed his most important invention to date, a device he called synchronous multiplex railway telegraph. A variation of the induction telegraph, it allowed for messages to be sent from moving trains and railway stations. By allowing dispatchers to know the exact location of each train, it provided for greater safety and a decrease in railway accidents. Mr. Woods often had difficulties enjoying his success as other inventors made claims to his devices. Thomas Edison made one of these claims, stating that he first created a similar telegraph and was entitled to the patent for the device. Woods successfully defended himself twice, proving there were no other devices upon which he could have relied or depended upon to make his device. And after the second defeat, Edison decided that it would be better to work with Granville Woods rather than against him, and offered him a position with the Edison Company. Over the course of his lifetime, Granville Woods would obtain more than 50 patents for inventions, including automatic brake and an egg incubator, in addition to making improvements to several other inventions. And this is why the name the Black Thomas Edison is unfitting for such a legend in Black history that matters.
If you would like to learn more Black History Matters moments, go to our website at www.abepmpls.org.
Well done, and gives a whole new light to the life of Granville T. Woods. And now for our closing remarks, let's go to Deborah Hurston, the Executive Director for ABEP.
I want to thank you, Freddie, for hosting the show. And I absolutely want to thank our panelists. You gentlemen did an absolutely fabulous job. Thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And we will be back in touch. I think there are some things that we can work on moving forward as well. And I would be remiss without thanking my team, Aida, Benson, Ladina. We couldn't pull this off without you. Thank you. This was absolutely wonderful. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Okay. So thank you all for joining us. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot. We do have a amazing library of Black History Facts on our website. And as of today, we launched a campaign for the credit union, a Give Lively campaign for the credit union. We've reached $1.8 million in contributions toward our goal of 3 million. So if you know of anyone, go on our website, you'll find the link. I don't know if Aida has time to put the link in here, but the credit union charter is virtually done. It hinges on, and this is the state's first Black-led credit union ever. It is absolutely historic, and our charter has been defined as exemplary. However, we have to have those resources in order to open the doors. Once you get the link, please donate and encourage others to do the same thing. Thank you.
All right. With that being said, thank you so much. And Daniel, I'm really excited for you, and I can't wait to see what Arise looks like as we continue going forward. And for everyone who's been a part of this one, I'm Freddie Bell, and thank you for joining us tonight, and I'll see you on the radio. Good night, everyone.